Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to talk about my favorite bait for fall bass fishing. I absolutely love fishing this bait, especially for smallmouth bass up here in the Northeast. Today we're going to talk about why I like this bait so much, how it's effective, a little bit on the equipment and a little bit on how to fish it, but it was very windy out there on the water today and I wasn't effectively able to get all the video I wanted to. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, leave a comment down below and we will do another video going totally in depth on everything you need to know about this guy right here. This is just the beginning stages of this bite happening. Some of the first of the year came on this. I probably shouldn't even been throwing it yet, but it's so effective that it's already been working. In the next few weeks here, this bait's gonna get super deadly and catch a ton of bass all the way up until our waters freeze up here in the Northeast. So stay tuned and let's get right into it. So what is this bait that I absolutely love to throw for fall bass fishing? It's going to be a blade bait. It's a super simple technique, catches a ton of smallmouth bass. It will work on largemouth and probably spotted bass as well. I've never really fished it for either of them much. I have caught some largemouth on it, but I've never even played with spotted bass on this technique. But this thing is like a smallmouth magnet. It absolutely catches them all the time, but specifically in those colder water months. The colder the better. This bait works amazing all the way down into really cold water temperature. Have had some very, very good days smallmouth fishing with just this guy in 40 to 42 degree water temperature. So they'll eat it when it's very cold. They love it. You might not catch as many fish in those water temperatures just because they're not very active, but it allows you to keep a bait in front of the fish and it allows you to catch them no matter how cold the water gets, because it is a technique that you can alter the retrieve as the water gets colder. So why is this bait so effective for smallmouth bass or bass fishing in general? It's going to be because it imitates a dying baitfish. Specifically in the fall months, that's why this bait works so well, but it also catches me some smallmouth in the springtime too, up on Lake Erie when the water's really cold. The reason is when that water gets below 50 degrees, even 45, the baitfish start to die off. They can't survive those water temperatures. They start to struggle. Any that are unhealthy, they're not gonna make it. They're gonna start to struggle. And what'll happen is they'll kind of just fall to the bottom and they'll try and shimmy back up a little bit and they'll kind of just fall back down to the bottom until they eventually die. That action drives bass crazy. They want to go check it out. It's a super easy meal for them. It's literally a dying baitfish. It's not dead yet, but all they got to do is swim over there. It's not going to run away from them. They can just swim over and eat it. So when the water's 42 degrees, if they have a school of shad that's right here that's still alive and they try and chase it and they run away, he has to expend more energy to go get those shad. Where if there's one that fell out of the school and sank to the bottom, all he has to do is swim over there and pick it up and he got food. So that's why they like this bait so much. It mimics that perfectly. The action on this bait is exactly that if you fish it correctly, and we'll talk about that out on the water just a little bit today. But essentially you're gonna fish this where it's gonna jig up off the bottom, it'll flutter a couple times, and depending on the one you have, blade bait color, it'll throw a flash. So you can see this one's a white one. As it vibrates up, it'll throw that white flash a little bit and then it'll just fall back down to the bottom. And it basically will catch the fish's eye and draw them in, even if they're not directly where your bait is. You can work it up. They'll see that flash, they'll slowly start to swim over, because they know that bait's not gonna go very far, just because of the way it works. So that's why that bait is so effective. It comes in a ton of colors, so you can do different things with it and fish different forages, but I keep it really simple. I like a chrome one. These are some of the old ones I used to fish. These are the Buckeye Lures blade baits. They were pretty good. They're pretty basic. I mean, basically this bait is a piece of metal with some lead molded on the head to give it weight. Chrome is an excellent one. The one I was catching them on yesterday was the 6 Sense Slice. It was in like a chrome pattern as well. I did lose that one. It ended up going in a tree at the bottom of the river, so she's gone. But a white one is an excellent one if you have some dirtier water or cloudy conditions where you're not going to get that flash from that chrome. This comes in a gold as well. If you have some dirtier water or some cloudy conditions, a gold one can be pretty good. And then the interesting thing about the Slice is it comes in some different colors than the traditional blade baits. So usually they just come in gold and silver, maybe a white, and that's it. These come in some painted colors. So if you have some really dirty water, or I've caught fish on red oftentimes in the springtime, specifically this color where it's like half chartreuse, half red, and it has black lines, because it looks like a small perch in dirty water. It can just give a presence of a perch. It's a little bit different than like a shad pattern. Not saying it imitates a perch perfectly, but sometimes fish are dumb, so they just like the bright colors and they'll come get it. This is a good one here. It comes in like a fire craw pattern, and then it also comes in some bluegill patterns. So if you fish some ponds that have largemouth, first thing in the spring, I've caught fish in ponds fishing these, and some other lakes as well, where maybe bluegill is the main forage. There might not be anything else, but those bluegills will still act the same when they're dying off. So it comes in some different colors than the traditional. The other thing with the slice that I really like, when you buy a blade bait, typically it's going to come with junk hooks on it, and it's going to come with no clip here. You cannot tie your line direct to this open area because it will break as soon as you set the hook. So it comes with the snap on the 6 cent slice. It comes with these hybrid hooks, which are awesome, and it comes with split rings already. So this is how I set my blade baits up. It eliminates me. These are not the stock hooks or clip on this bait here. So I bought this bait for $4 or whatever, and then I had to buy hooks, split rings, clips to get this bait ready to fish. And then I got to work and change them all out. These come ready to fish right out of the package. I've been really liking this slice blade bait. I've caught a bunch of fish on it over the past couple of days here, and it really works well. So if you're interested in getting any of these, you can really support the channel. You can use my code Quince. You'll save 10% off your order, and you'll be catching a bunch of smallmouth on these guys right here. It'll help me out a ton as well if you're interested in supporting the channel. We can go more in depth on equipment on the other video when we get out there and like actually fish this thing properly. I was fishing this just on the rod that I had ready to go right next to me. It might not be the best blade bait rod out there, but it's a 7-foot medium heavy. So pretty much everybody has one of these. You can do it with this setup right here. It worked just fine for me over the weekend. I had all my other rods taken up with baits, so I cut whatever I had off on here and tied it on real fast and was able to get down there. I just have a 7:1-to-1 gear ratio reel. Your gear ratio absolutely does not matter on a blade bait setup because you're only fishing it vertical. So all you're using this to do is hold line and pick up slack. And then I just had it on 15-pound test straight fluorocarbon. You can fish it on braid to a fluorocarbon leader as well. Super simple setup. Don't get over complicated on your equipment. That's why we're not going to talk on it too much in today's video. Literally any rod you probably have will work for this thing. Just go ahead and tie it straight to your line and you're good to go. So let's head out on the water. We'll fish this thing around a little bit. We did catch a fish, but it got really windy to the point where I couldn't fish this thing effectively anymore, and the fish absolutely stopped biting. I couldn't get good audio. So there'll be a little bit on catching fish with this guy right here, and then we'll jump back to the studio here to finish out today's video. So now that we talked a little bit about how effective this bait can be and kind of the basics of how you want to pick this bait, let's go ahead and throw this thing around and see if we can catch us a couple bass on it today. It's a perfect fall day for it. We got some sunshine, throw some reflection on that bait, and these fish are feeding up for fall, and most importantly feeding up for a very cold winter that's coming up here in the Northeast. So hopefully we can trigger a couple, get a couple on this blade bait here, and show you just how effective this bait can be for fall bass fishing. There we go. There's one on the blade, fighting hard. Not a bad one. Flip her on in here. There's the first one on the blade there. We'll show you a little bit about how we're fishing this and where we're fishing this in just a second. But you can see this bait's super effective to catch them during the fall. It imitates exactly what they're feeding on. A lot of these fish are down there feeding on little shad and other bait fish that look just like this. I was actually catching them last week. They were throwing up baby white bass and stuff. So even a white one, different colors could work, catch fish. They imitate bait fish, and that's what these fish are trying to do this time of year. So we'll show you a little bit about what we're fishing here, how we're fishing this. Hopefully we'll catch us a couple more. So all we're doing is we're taking this little blade bait right here and we're fishing isolated rock piles and rock spines and stuff like that. So I've been finding them with my 360 out here. This is one right here. It's a big rock spine. We're sitting in 17 foot of water, and this rock spine over here is like 12 foot deep. So I'm just pitching this bait up on top of it and I'm slowly working it back down the side. This is a super easy bait to fish. All I do is feed it some line. So I fed it line so it sinks straight down to the bottom. A lot of these fish will get it on the bottom or on the initial fall. They're gonna eat it on the fall 99% of the time. So I let it sink all the way to the bottom, and then all I do is slowly pump my rod up. And I'm not aggressively jigging it or doing anything crazy like that. I'm just gently lifting it like I would be lifting a Texas rig worm. We caught the rock pile there, but I lift it up like I'm fishing a Texas rig worm and slowly hop it up off the bottom, and I'll feel that blade pump 1 or 2 times, and then I stop and let it sink back down. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video talking about fishing a blade bait. It's a really fun technique to do. It's really simple, and we'll have that more detailed video coming up here in a few weeks. The biggest thing I wanted to note is that I really didn't get to talk about the hook set much because it was so windy that I just could not get a fish to bite it, and I couldn't really talk about it that much because the wind was just blowing out the audio. When you set the hook on this, there's not really a hook set that's involved. Typically, you're not even going to feel the fish bite this because they're going to pick it up off the bottom when it's at rest and you have slack in your line. Also, they're so cold that they're not going to like aggressively eat this thing, especially when you're fishing it very, very cold. In that instance, you're going to hook these fish when you lift your rod up to jig it again. These hooks need to be very sharp when you're fishing for these fish with the blade bait because you're not going to get a hook set. There is 6 points on your treble hooks here, but you want to check these hooks often and make sure they're super sharp, because if you have one dull point on here and that's the point that that fish picks up and you lift up on it, that pressure is not going to be enough to drive that hook through the fish's mouth. You need laser sharp hooks on these things to make sure you land the most amount of fish, because your hook set is you just fishing the bait. So very important there to have good hooks on your bait. Hope you enjoyed today's video talking about a blade bait. I have another video from last year where I fished a blade bait a little bit. So if you want to check that one out, it'll be right here. And make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any more of my fishing videos coming up. And thanks for watching.